Welcome back to another recap. We recap in chapter 2 today of the prolific book Man in the Mirror. I'm Timothy Jackson,
Charlie Price.
and yeah, man, we back at it. You know what I'm saying? It's been a pretty good week for me. Uh, Pretty challenging week. Um, you know,
Same here, same here. Happy Easter to everybody.
yep, happy Resurrection Day. It's Resurrection Sunday. Um, you know, it's Jesus is the reason for the season. Had he not risen, the power of his resurrection is what has me where I'm at today. You know what I'm saying? As I'm sure, you know, most, if not a great deal of you who are tuned in, um, can attest to. Um, but yeah, man, it's been a pretty solid week. Um, Anything in your week as far as what we covered last week? Did you find yourself kind of like seeing any of what we were faced with or challenged with in the first chapter of the book? Did any of it, you know, meet you?
Yeah, I mean, we talked on the week. It seemed like as soon as we started, which was our first week, the infancy of this book club that we were kicking off, it was a rough week. It was challenging mentally. On the job site, everybody could relate to that works and stuff. Just had a lot of challenges and curveballs. You set out to have some plans, or you see how how you want your week to play out, and sometimes you get these curveballs that come in life, and they frustrate. Little stuff, nothing major, or devastating, but little curveballs that distracted me from my mission. So me and Timothy, we talked about it earlier in the week, how it wasn't a coincidence that as soon as we kicking off trying to do something positive, we get challenged right away. So
Because there's a force that just does not want you, myself, Charlie, to be empowered. You know what I'm saying? Like in a positive way. Um, and as Charlie mentioned, is the soon as Monday came, you know what I'm saying? As soon as I posted that video, uh, yeah, man, the enemy was at me, full fledged, and I get it. I kind of anticipated it. It's just that you never really know how you're gonna come. And so, yeah, me and Charlie, we have a check-in in the middle of the week. So we start reading a new chapter pretty much every Monday, and we go all the way to Saturday, and then we come and recap on Sundays. Wednesdays is our midweek point, and yeah, man, I just I had to reach out, to Charlie because I know we in this together, and so I had a feeling he may have been experiencing some tribulation as well, and he was, what I'm saying, and we was able to tap in, we was able to reflect, we was able to, what I'm saying, like redirect and recover, and we was able to finish out the week strong, and that led us all the more into this recap, prepared to, discuss what we didn't get to discuss of chapter 1, and right on into chapter 2. Anything you want to highlight from chapter 1 that we didn't get to highlight? I know there's a few questions. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go, if you don't mind, I'm gonna read off all 5 questions, and then one at a time before we go into 2. We just gonna kind of like briefly answer them according to what we gather from the chapter and according to what we're experiencing in real life. So the first question asks us, mind you, the first chapter was on the rat race, and it was on pretty much how we can easily, because of how we were raised, what we actually identified from our from a very young age all the way into our mid-teens, all the way into our young adults, like what we were taking in as far as just the consumer lifestyle of being an American, how that'll affect you in your long-term thought life, and how you can get caught up in a rat race, and how there are these like fallacies that will have you compromised your moral standard to kind of keep up with the Joneses and like fall in line with more of a materialistic standard of living. And so the first question says, men are caught up in the rat race. Do you agree? Most men are caught up in the rat race. Do you agree or do you disagree? And why?
Yeah, I do agree. I agree that everybody gets caught up in their own race. You know what I mean? Or multiple races, depending on your point of view or your perspective. You know what I mean? Now, let me see. I don't believe everybody recognizes when they're in a race or a rat race.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Let me specify that. I don't think everybody realizes that. Let me just speak for myself. I can remember times, you know, where you just living carefree. You know what I mean? Where you somewhat carefree, you just kind of like living in the moment or impulsive and stuff like that. I think there are times in my life where I did not view it as a race I was in. I was just living. You know what I mean? But now that I'm older, know a little more, you know what I mean? Went through some things, conquered some things, and still struggling with a lot of things. I think most people, I agree. I think most people, or most men, are caught up in a rat race of some sort. What about you?
Yeah, and I think also just to specify, like a rat race. I don't know if any of the community has like witnessed or seen a rat race play out. Have you seen a rat race actually play out? Like you put one rat at one end of a maze.
Yeah, in a little maze.
In a little maze, and so it's, you know, specifically talking about a rat race, which I think is important to kind of identify when it comes to like most men being caught up in a maze of sorts. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like an ordinary or like, you know, common race. You know what I'm saying? Like the common triathlon or the common, you know, 400 millimeter, you know what I'm saying? Or like, you know, the race that we're used to kind of seeing, you know, men participate in, or, you know, that we probably in our perspective we're used to participating in ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like a little race between you and your homie, or a race between you and other individuals. It's a completely different type of race, and specifically, you know, it highlights, like in the beginning of the chapter, that lyric from that song.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
What is that?
because I was reading it again and I was thinking to myself, like, it's interesting how, you know, lyrics always have that double meaning.
Yeah.
But it said, like a rat in a maze, the path before me lies. And it's like, in a rat race, the likelihood of you being on the right path is unlikely. In every every path and every direction you turn is most likely lying to you and just running you right into another wall. And so I express all of that to say that I think more than us men would like to actually admit, and even when we do kind of come to the realization of it, or even some women, we don't want to admit it. You know what I'm saying? We'll keep running around in circles and running into walls until we ain't got no other choice but
It's that pride.
to like actually try to retrace our steps, get out of the maze, and never go back into it again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah, most definitely.
but yeah, I think I believe a lot of us, you know what I'm saying, are caught
So
up in
you
a rat
agree?
race. Yeah, I agree.
All right. I'm gonna read number 2 to you
Yep.
then. I'm gonna kick this off. Question number 2. And once again, we're just recapping the discussion questions from chapter 1, and then we're gonna dive into chapter 2. So bear with us. Remember, we're still testing out things, but just trying to make this experience be genuine, though. That's all we really care about. Number 2. If the rat race is an unwinnable race, why do you think so? Why do you think so many men run in it? What are they trying to accomplish? I'm gonna read it again. If the rat race is an unwinnable race, why do you think so many men run in it? What are they trying to accomplish?
I think a lot of men don't even realize it's a rat race.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't even realize that, or we don't even realize that it is an unwinnable race. Like, you know how us men are too. Like, we don't really think we can lose at anything. And then when we actually do identify that we may have lost, we we do everything we can to kind of save face, and we want to go at it until we win. And so I think that's why a lot of us actually stay stuck, is because we keep trying to win. Even though it appears unwinnable, it's like until we die or until we get so close to like a death through a rock bottom experience, we gonna keep running and running into, you know, every possible wall we'll run into. You know what I'm saying? But what about you?
Man, why do I think so many men run in it? I think for me, the lens I'm looking through, I think most men think they don't have a choice but to run in it. You know what I mean? I don't care if you got a family or not, you know what I mean, kids or not, wife, girlfriend, whatever or not. I think that society, or, you know, just general upbringing, commercials, movies, kind of, you know, what chapter 1 was talking about, how social media, the influences, how things play out. Probably not so much nowadays, because the world is more, you know, and more inclusive, like trying to just, you know, say, oh, everybody should have every thought, everything is right, you know what I mean, no one could do no wrong. But I think the stigma put on the man is that you have no choice, you know, but to run a race. So, and if you're not running or chasing something, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Someone might look at you like you wasting time, you know, or you not doing nothing, you're not contributing to your own
livelihood,
your own livelihood or anything, or those that depend on you, you know what I mean, or look up to you. So, and then the second part of that, what are they trying to accomplish? Man, I mean, I think once again, to the stigma society puts out there, I think it's like, man, trying to accomplish like a house, things that people need, you know, cars.
Or like the American dream.
Yeah, the American dream, or the facade of that, you know what I mean? And that looks different for everybody. But I think
for different cultures.
No, for sure, mandatory. I'm glad you brought up the cultural aspect, because it is different culturally. But yeah, I think it's more relates to that, you know, chasing the quote unquote American dream, materialistic things, and just the overall stigma that a man has to be chasing something. You got to be fighting some type of battle to be labeled a man.
I think it's important to identify too that like a win looks different and feels different to all of us in a different way. So I think that's what a lot of us are just trying to accomplish, is a win.
Yeah.
Especially after you've experienced a loss. And in this case, it's expressing like already if someone has run into the experience of something being unwinnable, then it's like any gain is necessary. And so it's like I just want to win. You know what I'm saying? Some of us is just like, I just want to win. And that looks, feels, and it's just different for all of us. You know what I'm saying? Where a win might be the most grandest accomplishment to some of us, a win could just be the most simplest accomplishment to others.
That's true.
And I think some of us is just trying to accomplish a win. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm gonna be number 3. In what ways has your material standard of living gone up since you were a child? In what ways do you think your moral, spiritual, relational standard of living has been affected? We asked and answered these questions in the last recap. We kind of like sped through them because it was towards the end. But as a child, I was brought up pretty morally. But I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like, I think every time my grandmother had an opportunity to get new furniture, she got it. Every time they had a new chance to get a new Cadillac, they got it. Every time they had a new chance to get, you know, something that just came out that was being televised or marketed, now that I look back on it, they got it.
They got it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even the new plastic, you know what I'm saying, that went on the couches. I look back on it now, I'm like, I think about some individuals' grandmas had the same plastic. I'm thinking like, man, they got the plastic with the times. Like, every time the plastic changed, the runners on the floor, they got it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man.
Crinkly stuff at the bottom.
But it trips me out because I think about how the people of that time, they knew how to market to our grandmas, grandpas, mothers, and fathers in a way. You know what I'm saying? Mind you, it was, the whole consumer reality was on a constant and continual increase because new products that had never been produced were being produced and introduced to our families and our communities. You know what I'm saying? So,
that natural progression.
right. But as I got older, I can honestly say, like, I didn't know how not to think, like that. And whatever moral, spiritual, and relational standard of living that had been established in me, it was compromised. You know what I'm saying? Especially once I started operating in that mentality of, you know what I'm saying, like a heathen. You know what I'm saying? Everything I wanted, you know what I'm saying, I compromised what I knew better to get it. You know what I'm saying? And so, what about you though?
I'm not gonna be too long on this one. Like Timothy said, we did touch on these, but in what ways has your material standard of living gone up since I was a child? Just that natural progression, like kind of what you touched on. I grew up, pretty morally. My parents are from the South. I was raised in church. I would go to church. You was gonna go to church every Sunday. That was my upbringing. My parents spiritually, I was raised Christian. Under that faith. Didn't have everything I wanted, but had everything I needed. All of that. My dad is he's from an era where, he's a Vietnam vet. So his experience, I was raised in a very cultural house. Where I knew about Malcolm X. Like, you had to watch Roots. When Roots came on, my dad, he made me and my sister. You had to sit and you had to watch that for a week long, however long it used to be. Roots used to run for like a whole week, I think. It was long, I know that. Maybe 3 days or something like that.
So every time it came on, seasonally,
my
whenever
dad,
it came on.
he wasn't he's not a real talkative person, but when it comes to that cultural stuff, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna watch it because that was his time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll say morally, I've always had not always tapped into it, because I think for me growing up, going to church and stuff like that, it was a good thing and it was a bad thing because it was just routine. You know what I mean? So it was just like this is what and cultural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what black folks do. You know what I mean? So most people, what I mean, you're gonna go to church, you're gonna have some type of understanding of God, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's gonna be introduced to you early, in my opinion. So morally, I strayed away, you know what I mean, from the stuff, but I knew, you know what I mean? Like I can't fake and say that I was blinded, you know what I mean? Like I just kind of refused to pay attention to it, you know what I mean? But would still pray, you know what I'm saying? Now I trip out like that no matter what kind of lifestyle you live in, some people might be praying to the same, maker, you know what I'm saying? Someone who you might see as a perceived enemy. You know what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
And y'all both praying and believing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So I have that understanding now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't have it back then. But like most do, straight away from that. My standard of living over time is becoming more serious, man. That's just it. You know what I mean? It's just becoming more serious to me. I told you a little earlier, I was just reflecting a lot today, you know what I mean? And I'm lucky, man, to see, I've spent a lot of quality time with older individuals from our community and stuff like that, where I caught them at the time where they were going through their transitions, you know what I mean? So I was lucky enough to have I told you the other day, Hubert, an older brother or so to me, you know what I mean, in our community, gave me a book a long time ago, the Willie Lynch letters, you know what I mean? And I read, it was a little pamphlet, you know what I mean, it was written by a white man, and it talked about how, and I'm not trying to be racial or anything, it's just the content of the book.
No, it's good. This is good information.
It talked about how a white man, he wrote a book on how to make the best plantations, you know what I mean? He said, if you follow these rules, the black race will forever crumble themselves. You separate dark skin from light skin, long hair from short hair. You just create division. You know what I mean? I remember he gave me that book and I read it. You know what I mean? And it hit me. Like,
how did that impact you? That book?
Oh man, I was surprised, number one, that an older homie had giving me like I had people try to push me in the right way. You know what I mean? So I was surprised at that, number one. But culturally, it really made me like tap it, like it just sparked something. You know what I mean? Like, man, like that's crazy, man. And then we just see it playing out nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really affected me. It was a good read, man. But talked about how the slave owner, you're supposed to separate dark from light. If you dark, put them in the field. If you light skin, you put them in the house. You know, and we culturally we make jokes about these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's every bit of a reality.
Right. You know what I mean? And they said it'll create a jealousy amongst their culture. You know what I mean? To where they'll self-destruct. You know, so nowadays when I reflect on things like that, you know what I mean? It empowers me to keep going. You know, doing things like this. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read number 4.
Shouts out to Hubert too, man, on shooting that book
for real.
because
Thank you.
you know that's not, at least in our community,
Yeah.
that's something that is far and few between.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why we
Right.
do this. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Right.
because it's something that is necessary.
Right.
And hopefully,
Yeah.
if you out there and you have an opportunity to give a book to someone in a generation under you or a generation over you, you should take the opportunity to do that. You know what I'm saying? And encourage and empower their perspective.
Yeah. You want me to read number 4? Number 4. It appears that many men have been lulled into mental and spiritual complacency. How have consumerism and the media impacted your own values and the way you spend your time and money? You want me to go first, or you got it?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because as entrepreneurs, as individuals who have been given an opportunity to steward a whole business,
Yeah.
we can easily, if not careful, I have just get caught up in just not stewarding my, the finances or the income of the business, and it can come as a result of just a lack of discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like just not, because the opposite of that is the spiritual complacency and like being in a mental complacency. But on the other end, on the opposite spectrum of that is a mental and spiritual discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like an entrepreneurial discipline.
Yeah.
Having a standard for whatever income you have coming in, whoever your employees are coming in.
Right.
And it's gonna be hard to upkeep it. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is you can't be complacent. You gotta
You have to maintain.
you have to maintain, but you have to push to kind of like maintain a higher standard every time. That way the business can grow. And that's what I'm learning personally. And consumerism and media have impacted those values. I'm aware of that based on how I do spend my time and my money. And it's not always in a responsible way. I touched on it, last time a little bit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I don't need to buy the most recent vacuum cleaner. I don't need to buy the most recent floor machine. I don't have to buy, and so I was getting caught up in that because I wanted to be able to present, the best tools for the job. But, with time that comes, like if I don't necessarily have the money to spend to put on that, I don't need to spend the money to put on it. And I was doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's easy to get caught
it's
up
easy.
in it.
You know what I'm saying?
Remember we was laughing about it yesterday, or not yesterday, last week
time,
or something. And I was like, man, Timothy pulled out some device. We both in the cleaning business, and he pulled out the device. I'm taking pictures. I'm like, man, I need 3 of those. Like, and I don't even need 3.
Yeah.
I probably just need 1.
And there will be a time where you will need 3.
Right.
And that's what I mean exactly. Yeah.
Right, but it's easy to get caught up in that. And I'm gonna just piggyback on it, not be too long. Same way, especially in entrepreneurship, I'm new to it. Spent most of my time, I gave 20 years, still giving time to a company. I work with children from all different kinds of backgrounds in the mental health field. That's my profession. But on this side of things, on the entrepreneurship side of things, it's easy to get caught up in it because you want to try to create a firm foundation, because understanding that your foundation is the most important part. You know what I mean? So it's appropriate to put a lot of intensity and aggressiveness into that, but also checking yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which the second chapter kind of gets into self-examination. You know?
I'm trying to find. So the last question is: the Madison Avenue works hard to define for us who and what we are, usually in terms of the beautiful, wrinkle-free life. What practical steps can you take to free yourself from its influence? And so, if you can, do you remember? In term like the Madison Avenue effect, like exactly what
Yeah,
that
it
was?
was just the American dream, that type of context is what it's kind of speaking to. You know what I mean?
Right.
Lights, camera, action, the glitz and the glamour, and all of that. Everything that comes with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so pretty much the more beautiful you are, the more beautiful your things are, the more wrinkle-free you are,
Yeah.
the more of an advantage you will have in life is pretty much what's promoted.
In psychology, they call that beauty bias. You know what I mean? And how much people don't think about how much that plays into stuff.
Right.
Even in court cases, I forget the first court case looks played a part in was Ted Bundy. I think that was his name. I'm just using that as a reference point to where beauty bias, speaking to the Madison, what is it called? The Madison Avenue aspect that they're touching on in this book. I think that's the first case in America where the looks, because to society he was handsome. You can't be capable of such a heinous crime. You know what I mean? So. Transitioning into the book, you know what I mean? That's the facade. That's one of those facades.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just because you have, and I'm not saying nothing wrong with having a Mercedes-Benz or tangible things, you know what I mean, that you work for, but you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you have it together morally, spiritually. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that that you're problem free. You know what I'm saying?
And it's crazy because most commercials, like, you'll see the most, it's like they put the most beautiful people on TV, the most fit people on TV eating fast food, the most fit and beautiful people smoking cigarettes, the most fit and beautiful people drinking alcohol.
And that's the lie.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, it's just, it's a fallacy, man. It'll lead you into a confused and unstable thought life,
Especially
and
for the young impression.
for the young, exactly.
You know?
But yeah, man. With that, we're gonna transition into chapter 2, which was, if I might say myself, a pretty challenging chapter. The title of this chapter is "Leading an Unexamined Life," and for you personally, when you seen, I know you mentioned it earlier, when you seen the heading of this chapter,
Yeah.
what was the first thing you thought as far as what you were to expect in this chapter?
Oh man, I was nervous to dive into it. Leading an unexamined life. That's just deep right off top.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about it?
Because I did that for a long time, and sometimes I'm gonna be honest, I find myself looking up a month after examining some things, realizing that I've led a whole month of an unexamined life, and which is why I do battle insecurities as a father, insecurities as a husband, insecurities as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because I'm just go.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking the time to examine. Now, mind you, this is going to go into a deeper context, but just on the surface right now, when I seen that, I immediately was convicted.
Yeah.
Because I know that leading an unexamined life for 15 years, 15, 16, 17 years of gangbanging, and just living a criminal lifestyle, and forcing myself to not examine anything that would make me feel like this is what, opposite of what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like I just didn't want to live, examining anything that would have me feeling like I chose the wrong identity. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read that, and then when I read the quote,
Socrates.
yeah, and then the scripture, I was like, man, this about to get deep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
It's gonna get like you said, man. When I saw it, for me, I went into like an isolation for a long period of time. Forgive us, it's a little cold out here. That hawk is out here, so be patient
if
with
you
us.
see me stuttering and my lips
Yeah,
chattering, you know what I'm saying?
It's cold out here. I'm not gonna lie, but
I wasn't expecting it to be this cold, bro.
yeah. Timothy had on a Hawaiian shirt, y'all.
Yeah,
Came out, he said he
I
needed a
came out here
sweater.
in my Easter get-up,
Yeah.
and it was just like my bro, courtesy of
Yeah.
my bro Charlie, he had this, I don't know what this is, but this thing is...
Something to cover you up a little bit.
That's
but,
why I'm zipped up to my neck in this thing.
But leading an unexamined life, man, for a long time, I was in isolation. You know what I mean. I shared with you and a few others who are close to me.
Because I know you. I don't mean to cut you off. You're gonna mention
ahead.
this a couple times. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, you don't got to go all the way into it, but just
Yeah.
express like when you say you went into an isolation, what moved you into the isolation, and then how did you come out? Like you don't got to go into detail, but like as far as what moved you, because you said you just pretty much expressed like, I went into isolation, and then you were getting ready to explain some things.
Yeah. Without going too deep into just mental health, I struggle with mental health. And once I became went to start working on it, you know what I mean? That's when it became real hard. You know what I mean? So, and I was afraid, man. You know what I mean? I didn't know if I was gonna be understood. I shouldn't have been caring about that stuff. You know what I mean? But I was. You know what I mean? And then sometimes I didn't even understand myself. You know what I'm saying? And it was fearful. And I was nervous for myself and people around me. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to come in contact with nobody until I
Had it figured out.
I somewhat had it figured out. Which within my isolation, I learned a lot of things. You know what I mean? But I was just total examination, and it was to an unhealthy degree. You know what I mean?
And would you say that up to that point you had lived pretty much an unexamined life? Or did you find yourself at pit stops examining
Nah,
things?
pit stops I would examine. Like I said, I was fortunate from my generation, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the toughest or the meanest or baddest or nothing, but in our community, man, I was fortunate to spend a lot of individual, intimate time with a lot of people. You know what I mean? That came before me, man.
That was you though, I think
I would ask questions.
You would put yourself
Yeah.
in front of everybody you could
Yeah.
to figure it out.
I would.
You know what I'm saying? And to
I
figure
would.
out what you was a part of, what you was
Right.
doing, how you would be
Right.
affected, and how we were being affected.
Right. I remember, and I'm not no prison dude or anything like that, but I remember just all my peers going to prison for long periods of time. Like you said, I would ask questions. You know what I mean? I would always examine. I would take a step back. You know what I mean? And sometimes what I would look at, it would scare me. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, dang, man, but these are your loved ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Taking children to go see they dads for the last time that's about to go away for 25 years. You know what I mean? I would do that. That was almost like a routine thing I would do on Sundays. How many we got in the county? How many kids is out in the community? Get them in the car, me and a couple other people, and we'll go up there just so people could visit they dad. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, I've always been someone who would take a step back, which probably played into my mental health because I'm an empath. You know what I'm saying? So I care deeply for those who I choose to care about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Real deeply. Even if they don't know it. You know what I mean? I know it. So to answer your question, I would period. Now there have been times where I wasn't examining nothing. You know what I mean? Rather that be drugs and alcohol, numbing it. You know what I mean? Let's just be honest with that type of stuff, because those are real struggles. You know what I mean? And those are real good numbing devices. You know what I'm saying? So there were times where I would be not examining nothing, just living in the moment. But I would periodically take a step back. And when you do take a step back and look, sometimes it's scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's a quote by Socrates, quoted by Plato, in Apology. It says, "The life which is unexamined is not worth living." The scripture, which is Lamentations 3:40, says, "Let us examine our ways and test them, let us return to the Lord. These two both, they hit with me because this is exactly like both of these simultaneously is what happened leading up to my transition and my transformation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, from the moment I caught the case.
In Mississippi?
No, I'm talking about when I caught the case.
Okay.
I was receiving emails from you, emails from certain individuals, and I was like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, how did I end up here again? And the answer was, bro, you was not examining. Well, I wasn't saying it like this. You know, I'm not gonna front. Reading this, I'm understanding that that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was leading an unexamined life. I mean, I was examining, you know what I'm saying, like how to actually operate with homies and, you know, individuals that wasn't from the gang that I was really close to, the twos and fews, and they know who they are, that were like, you know, very instrumental in me being out as long as I was out. Providing a safe environment for me, providing an opportunity to be creative, providing me job opportunities. And those interactions would force me to examine, like, why do I continue to sacrifice my life? You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
You had these glimpses of...
Yeah. And then I was making the music. I was making more music around this time in 2007 and 8 that was reflected. I remember intentionally writing and producing music that I could listen back to that would actually speak to me. You know what I'm saying? And would remind me of yesteryear, you know what I'm saying? All the way to the present time, and like what I really, really, really wanted up ahead.
What you was working on in my garage?
No, that was previous.
Okay.
That was previous, right? That was like the 2005, but in 2007, I got out in 2007, that whole 10 months.
Right.
I was in the house, you know what I'm saying? AJ had bought a computer for me, a keyboard for me, him and Karina. And, you know, he had just got stabbed all them times at the beach. And he figured I was coming home on one, which I kind of was, but I wasn't. I was confused too, but they gave me the keyboard and was like, bro, just make music. Make it count. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, not to get long-winded, but to fast forward, in 2008, when I caught the case and I was going through them first 3 months, I gave up. I literally, it was your emails and a few others' emails that helped me to understand that there was something that you seen and something that these other two people seen that was beyond Baby G Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though that's who you were communicating to, there was something that we had developed in our relationship that in your correspondence to me, it made me feel human.
Because you were genuine.
And it made me feel like there is more to this, but I didn't know how to live outside of that because I had pushed past what my previous examinations had brought to the surface. I stuffed it. Like, I was like, okay, I may have identified this during this examination in this period of time, but this is who I have to be. This is who I am. This is who people know me as. This is who I'm respected as. And this is what it is. All the way up until, like, I realized that living an unexamined life, I don't even want to live this. I don't even want to live no more. And that's when the quest really, really, really began, when I was like, you know what? Baby G Man gonna end up dying. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, like he's gonna end up, I don't know how to express it other than just saying, like, he was already passing, but it's like he's gonna die soon. And that's the only way I'm gonna be able to actually be Timothy and feel like life is worth living. Because at this point, I don't even feel like I can be free no more. I don't know how to steward my freedom. As Baby G Man, I get out. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be Timothy. I just don't know how. I ain't been Timothy since 13.
Straddling that fence.
You know what I'm saying?
Struggling too,
And then this scripture, let us examine our ways and test them and let us return to the Lord. And so that's what began to happen. I began to examine and examine and examine and examine my walk, my talk, how people viewed me. Why am I not introducing myself as Timothy? You know what I'm saying? My ID say Timothy. When they call me on the PA system, it's Jackson. When I get mail, it's Timothy Jackson.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is starting to resonate with me.
Yeah.
And it's forcing me to examine who I am, who my mama named me, you know, who my grandma named me. All of the elders that were around me in those earlier days, none of them held me up as like, boy, you're going to be the baddest G-man. You're going to be the baddest G-man in the Oceanside City. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So they called you Timothy.
they call me Timothy, Lil T.
Good name.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I'm you know, my dad's junior, but,
Right.
and I'm a pastor to you. I got to a point to where I returned to the Lord, Jesus Christ. I got baptized at St. John, up on the east side when I was 14. About 2.5, 3 months later, I ended up in a case with some of the homies.
Yeah.
And it almost went all bad for me because of the way that some people perceived the situation. But by the grace of God, you know, it turned out on the upside for me.
Okay.
But you know, here I am now,
Yeah.
41, 42, and I can honestly say that living an unexamined life, it led me to giving up and feeling like I don't even deserve to live outside of prison.
Yeah.
I began to examine my life and examine some people were telling me that didn't even know me. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, why you walking around here like you're not going home? You going home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at you, man.
Yeah.
Look at you, listen to you. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't hear it, I don't see it. And then I just started, you know, and then 2 years later into that sentence,
Yeah.
face to face with the Lord, and he just stripped me naked. You know what I'm saying? Like, with all due respect, not trying to sound funny or nothing, but
Right,
he just
right.
stripped me of my blues.
Yeah.
And he just was like, bro, this is how I made you.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? This is how I made you. You don't put that costume on again. You don't fit it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been able to walk. I walked out that other 6 years, and then that's how I made it side by side with you right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And that's a good thing. I'm glad, man. Like, I'm glad. I can't remember but you know, we stay
Yeah.
connected
Yeah.
through a lot of your imprisonment. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad, man. We blessed to have you back on this side, man. You know what I mean? And you've been an inspiration to me, and I know a lot of others, man. So many others have too, man, from our community. Not
Right.
just Timothy, man. Like, you know what I mean? Kilos, Hubert, everybody, man. Big Road Dogs.
Sabalias,
I've
like
been
everybody.
lucky to see a lot of. I could speak forever, man, for the good that I've seen from my community, man. Like, you know what I mean? Even if they can't recognize it themselves, I've seen it because I watched it. You
Right.
know what I mean? I used to go with Kilo to pick his kids up. You know what I mean? When they were little, like in the back of his car. You know what I mean? I'll be riding around daily. You know what I mean? So I've seen these things, glimpses of us being good fathers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or that intensity to
and just
want
that
to-
greatness, just
Yeah, man.
kind of
Yeah.
tucked deep down inside.
Yeah,
Like,
we all have it. We all have something. You know what I mean? It's just about pulling it out. You know what I mean? We
Right.
still in that process now. That's what this is
It's
for,
about,
man.
yeah.
To help us encourage
to
ourselves.
cultivate it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To cultivate and till that seed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And help that stuff that's been sown in us to grow. I mean, ultimately, the Lord gives the increase.
Right. Right.
But man, we gotta like water and help each
Gotta
other.
water those plants.
Exactly.
And it's speaking to. So we're gonna dive into one of these subcategories in chapter 2, which is called the problem. And I'm gonna touch on something where they basically in the text it's starting to get into the. It says spiritually. I'm gonna just read a little excerpt right here. It says spiritually, too many of us are just playing church, and this is where it starts to like poke at me, man. Because I'm not. I was raised in the church, but I'm not gonna act like I go all the time. I went today, but you know what I mean. I don't
Yeah.
go all the time like I should. Like I know I probably should. It says spiritually, too many of us are just playing church, just going through the motions. We show up for worship services, but the message we come away with doesn't do for us what it does for some of the other men. We don't know exactly why, and before we spend much time thinking about it, our minds wander to work problems, chewing out our gut. We speed off to the next busy task, and by Monday afternoon, the memory of Sunday is as distant as the memory of last year's vacation. And to me, that just stood out to me, man, just because that's one of my issues. You know what I mean? Is I'll put so many other things as like a priority, you know what I mean, over something that I should do that's going to be beneficial for me to role model to my kids as well. You know what I mean? I mean, my kids might go to church more than I do. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to gloat like that's a good thing. You know what I mean? But that's why this chapter is very challenging because it poked at some insecurities, some things I know I need to work on that's been tugging at me. You know what I mean? But I just haven't worked up the courage to make it, put it into practice. And the chapter will dive into that more so too later on. Like, are you watering your plants? You know what I mean? Like, what good does it do to have the knowledge? You know what I mean? You can't try to apply it to your life. You know what I mean? In a real way. What stood out to you in this subcategory, if anything?
Yeah.
Or what did you want to
So
touch?
going into the chapter, right? It talks about. So as the chapter begins, it talks about like, it says life is hard, and then you die. It's like another quote that kind of like is in, you know, like the very beginning of the chapter, and for me that hit obviously because of the life that I lived, which was a hard gangbanging life, and then I feel like that individual died.
Yeah, you just spoke on that.
And then now, life is hard in another way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, trying to undo an identity that you've been building up pretty much your whole like active life is hard. And every day you gotta do, every day I feel like I die. You know what I'm saying? To like a lot of what my flesh or like my mind wants to give in to, I gotta like die to that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it asks, who am I? Why do I exist? Is this all there is? And why do I feel so empty?
Yeah.
And as I was reading these, I'm like, I'm a lot more further along than I once was. So I'm confident in who I am, why I exist. Is this all there is? Why do I feel so empty? But then there was a part of me that was like, nah, not so fast.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because who are you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then it was like, yeah, you know, that's why I'm in therapy right now.
Yeah.
That's the theme of my therapy. I just started therapy 3 weeks ago.
Identity focus.
Who I am focused,
Okay.
identity focused.
That's
You know what I'm
good.
saying? Like who I told this therapist, like, that's what in this first phase of this, I need to come out knowing who I am.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to even express that at first because I'm like, how does that even sound? You 41?
You feel like it sounds like it's weak or something.
Yeah,
like that.
or it's like you should know who you are. You got kids, you got a family, you leading, you got a
Yeah.
business. How you not know who you are?
Yeah.
I can't explain that to you. I can't explain
I mean,
that
even
to the person.
we talked about it, and even I was like, damn. I mean, I didn't know that was your struggle.
That's
you
the
know
struggle.
What I mean?
And anybody who knows, anybody right now that has gangbanged or went through some traumatic lived experience, and you've been living under a certain bondage or identity for a certain period of time,
Yeah.
when you get free from that, it's just like, man, look it, man. I'm gonna go here real quick. Moses brought the Israelites out of bondage, led them into the wilderness, and there was a point where they was like, bro, we want to go back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Back to the trauma.
this isn't us. We're not made for this.
Yeah.
What you talking about? Like, how we gonna eat? How we gonna drink? You brought us out here to kill us? Like, for thirst and hunger? We want to go back. At least the Pharaoh, like, he made stuff. The provision was for us.
They were comfortable.
They were comfortable and complacent there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's where I was face to face with that. I was like, man, like, I'm at a place now where I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm not the person I thought that I would die as or do life in the pen as. I got children that I hoped and dreamed for while I was in my incarcerated situation. A beautiful, hard working and encouraging and loving wife.
Yeah.
But why do I still feel like I don't know who I am? And that leaves you empty. You know what I'm saying? And so that resonated with me. And so that went into like the problem aspect for me when I stepped into the chapter. It said the number one shortcoming of men is that we tend to lead unexamined lives. And I said, okay, how many timeouts? Because it asked, how many timeouts in a day do you, Timothy, how many timeouts do you call for you to huddle up with you or your wife and just like ask yourself what's going on up to this point in the day? Because that's how you get familiar with you.
Yeah.
Checks and balance. If you go all throughout the day
Yeah.
By the time you get home,
Yeah.
you want to eat or you want to shower, then you think you're going to have a little bit of time.
Right.
You lay down, next thing you know, everybody's asleep. Then you waking up, you got to do it all over again. And you get further and further and further from yourself.
Yeah.
And so prioritizing check-ins and timeouts for myself is gonna help me to meet this problem, which was pretty much the highlight is the shortcoming, which is like that we tend to leave unexamined lives, which we covered like coming into it, but that's pretty much where I resonated with this. It's like knowing that I have to take more time outs throughout the day to examine where I'm at. Even if it becomes a system, even if it just becomes a habit, it's a habit I don't have.
Right.
And until it proves opposite, you know what I'm saying? Like I gotta switch something up. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah.
The next section we have that we're gonna approach is called "Not Everyone Thinks Like I Do." I'm gonna ask you this question that they highlight in this chapter. It says, "Why do men think the things they think, say the things they say, and do the things they do?" I'm gonna read after this too a little bit. Each of us has a worldview. For most of us, our worldview results more from where we were born, who our parents were, and what schools we attended than a careful examination of issues. Yet our worldview influences every thought we have, every word we speak, and every action that we take. Pack that for us. And then I'll piggyback off of you.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
question.
it's interesting, man. Like at 41 years old, you know, they say that we grow. So when you read, I kind of had the opportunity to read like some developmental books on like helping children's minds develop and helping them get from age 0 to like 20, 23.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like every 5 years there seems to be some type of growth spurt all the way up until like 22, 23. Wherever a person spends environmentally, spiritually, and physically, wherever a person is impacted the most in between a certain age frame, is ultimately what's going to dictate and determine what's going to take place after that age 22 or 23, depending on if you're a male or a female. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I find truth in that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, you know, for me, thinking about how, you know, it goes into talking about the two worldviews. You know what I'm saying? The secular worldview and the Christian or like the God-centered worldview, and how pretty much the book is saying that there really is only those two worldviews. That there's only a secular worldview and a worldview where God is the governor of everything. And in the secular worldview, you make space to be able to determine any and everything. Where in the worldview where God is in control, you give that space to Him. And so, where I think I kind of like fell. I mean, I obviously fall more on the God-centered worldview, but I couldn't help but to think that for so long I lived a very secular life while believing that God was in control. You know what I'm saying? Like,
dive into that too more.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I really believed, like, now mind you, I didn't believe I deserved Him to lead me out of any situation or bless any prayer that I may have had because of the secular life that I lived. Now mind you, I didn't even know it was called secular back then. I just learned that secular was every bit of the way I was living, every bit of everything I was listening to.
You was all secular.
I was a secular dude, you know what I'm saying? But now that I'm getting some context and I'm getting some language to put with this, I'm understanding that you gotta choose.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you don't, and you try to live under both worldviews, you're gonna live an unstable, unbalanced,
Make you crazy.
confused life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It'll make you crazy, and I can relate, man. Piggybacking off what you're saying, your worldview is starts to be shaped as soon as you come to being. You know what I mean? Like you said, you did some studying on development of child development, and I have too. You know what I mean? You know, my degree is in psychology, so you know when you were infant, school age years, you know what I mean? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You directly influenced from your parents or whatever your immediate surroundings are. You know what I mean? And then when you get to like, you know, middle school, you know, high school ages, you know what I mean, your peers and your environment take over more of your, have a more, you know what I mean? Then it all starts to mesh together. But like you said, those experiences and those worldviews, once you get older, they have a significant impact on how you approach, you know what I mean, life in general, you know what I mean, for everybody.
What's good, community? Timothy on Purpose here. Just wanted to take another opportunity to introduce you to another great man in my life. This individual right here, Cassie McCurtis, there's not words that can express who this individual has been in my life, how he's encouraged me in reading, and not just any type of reading the Holy Scripture. I've been home for prison for about 6 years now, and this is the individual who I've been able to link up with immediately. And every situation I ran into, every circumstance I ran into where I just did not know how to transition, how to think, what to do, he asked me if I was reading my word. He came at me with scripture, and he blessed me what his devotion blessed him with. So I brought him onto the platform to introduce him to you, community, but also for him to share why it's important to read. I know he reads other books other than the Holy Bible, but I know this man consistently reads that Bible. And so he has a regimented devotion, and I know that it takes discipline in order for him to keep that. And so I kind of wanted him to come in and share a little bit about why it's important to him, why it is important for him to read, and why he felt the need to consistently push me to read my Bible. So if you want to go ahead and just share with them.
So my name is Casey McCurtis, or Cassie McCurtis, you know, the ones who really, you know me. I don't even know where to start. It was just, you know, I was going through so much. After I got out of the program, gave my life over to my Lord and Savior, I was still dealing with a lot of mental issues from drug abuse. I knew that if I continued to just stay in His Word, it would strengthen me mentally, physically. You know, so much was going on in my mind to where I was almost wanted to give up at times, but I knew, you know, that His Word, if I just stayed in His Word, He will continue, you know, to do the work, you know, and fix my mental state where I was at, you know, from the drug abuse. That's why, you know, for me, reading was key, you know what I'm saying? Reading His Spirit, meditating on it, praying ceaselessly, you know, just keeping faith in Him and knowing that He's gonna work everything out.
We both come from a certain life, same gang, and now we're in the same transition on the opposite side of it. But had it not been for, you know, reading the Word and trusting in the Lord, we wouldn't have anything we have today. My brother also has a company. He launched a trucking company not too long ago. I think it's been a little over a year now.
2 years.
Talk about, if you don't mind, a little bit of how you know, reading and empowered your perspective to actually, you know, walk you into that confidently.
You know, once God delivered me from that messed up mind of thinking, and, you know, just always, you know, just the negative thoughts that I was dealing with, staying focused on His Word, me and my wife was put in a position to where we was able to, you know, sell our home and be blessed to be able to start a business up. And it's been a successful business, very successful. I wouldn't be able to have done that with him, because it goes back to me reading. If I had never stayed in His Word, I probably would have given up and just went back to using, and I give Him thanks for all that.
And that's just a testament to how reading will empower your perspective. You had a perspective once, I've had a perspective once. I'm sure most of you who are tuning in have had, you know, a perspective of insecurity, unworthiness, and rightfully so. For some of us, I mean, we've done some things that we aren't too proud of. We probably feel like we don't deserve anything as a result of. But when you read, emphasis on reading, because reading is empowerment. You know, reading will take you to the next level. I'm an example of that. My brother's an example of that. As a result of that, we stand here before you, encouraging you, please empower your perspective and read, whether it's the Holy Bible, some autobiographical literature, some literature where you're being consulted. Read. Is there anything else that you could just share with us?
Read, because you want to feed yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically. That's the fruit, And like I said, for me, reading and applying those, to my life every day, those are my instructions. That's what keeps me going in life, and that's what keeps me on the right, on the right path.
Amen. Well, community, I snatched my boy up out of his little, regularly scheduled situation to just, step in with me and communicate to you guys why reading is important. But as my boy, Belief, Melanin always says, protect your life.
At that foundation, and that's where the dilemma comes, where you have, like myself, I'm just using myself, raised in the church, you know what I mean? Like, I know better, you know what I mean? I was raised under circumstances where I know better, you know what I mean? Not everything that I do did I have like an understanding, but for the most part, when you're doing things that are mischievous or doing things that could be detrimental to your development, you know what I mean? But as I get older, and I'm thankful, you know what I mean, for my experiences, man, like, you have to choose. You know what I'm saying? You can't, I'm not going to say you can't, because for me, I had to choose because I still live in my city. You know what I mean? Yeah. My kids are raised right here.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're going to befriend people who are, you know what I mean? I think I shared with you with my son, he turned 19. He's older now. All my kids is older, but I remember when he was in middle school, man, and he asked, could somebody spend the night? I'm not gonna dive too deep into things. I want this to stay focused on what we're here for. But my child asked, could his best friend spend the night? And his best friend was a so-called perceived
of another
enemy,
culture.
You know what I mean? And I was like, what kind of dad am I? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this can't be a problem.
Dang,
this can't be a problem, man. Like, and that was one of the first things where I was like, all right, man, you gotta grow up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can't be about your dilemma in your head with you and your peers or your community. Somebody's looking at you. You know what I mean? And you have to choose. And I remember, and I'm thankful for my older brothers, uncles in my community. I remember Harv, Ski Ball, I think we called Demo, and I expressed to them my battle. You know what I mean? Of like, hey man, I know I'm at the age where I still need to be out here, you know what I mean? But I gotta choose them, and they let me, you know what I'm saying? And that was powerful, so shout out to all those individuals too, man, because that, not like any grown man needs a permission, but you know what I mean, you want to respect our culture,
right,
man, you know what I mean? So,
and that's the difference between, I think, sorry to cut you off, but that is just the difference between individuals who are genuinely rooted, and it's hard to uproot yourself.
Yeah.
And you need help.
Yeah.
It ain't that you couldn't have.
Right.
You could have uprooted yourself and just been,
Yeah.
But it's like to have help.
Help, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To kind of help
or
you.
encouragement too.
Right, but that's the help. It's to help you to uproot in a proper way. Versus you uproot yourself and you feel like now you're second guessing it, because that's what comes when you're truly devoted and you're truly like committed to that life. Is you don't feel like you feel like that's your identity. I mean,
you don't want to let people down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
you don't want to disappoint no one. You want to feel like you're leaving no one for dead. But then on the other end of it, you have your loins. That you feel in your battle with leaving them for dead. And it's like, look, and as men, real men, it ain't like they were giving you permission. Like you said, it's just that they honor your honor.
Yeah. I remember that's what Harv said too. He said, man, you a man. You know what I mean? What kind of man would you be if you didn't? You know what I mean? Like, and just to hear, sometimes, man, in this life, you think that your peers, we all have something in us.
Bro, that's been one of my biggest.
And I've been fortunate to hear diamonds come out of our peers' mouths sometimes, where it's like, you think they won't say something, and they'll hit you with like, nah, man, what you think it is?
Did I tell you what Lacey?
I struggle with the same stuff. You know what I mean?
I told you what Lacey said
about
how he was. For a while, I kind of avoided talking to like certain individuals that I was really close to, because I didn't think that they would understand me transitioning out, because of a few interactions I had with a few who didn't understand. Not that they didn't respect the decision and the choice I made. But I remember I talked to Lacey, and he was like, I got a bone to pick with you. was like, and I thought he was about to get on my
Maybe.
case. No, I thought he was about to get. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, now
Yeah.
here's the day. He's
Yeah.
probably about to, homie,
Yeah.
how you gonna leave us for? How you gonna leave
Yeah.
us for dead? And
Yeah.
you know what I'm
That's
saying?
what you
Like,
thought.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
But he was like,
on a whole nother page.
I'm like, I got the bone I want to pick with you is I'm disappointed in you because you thought that I wouldn't respect
Your decision.
your decisions. He's like, I'm one of the ones that you living for me.
Yeah.
Now,
I remember you shared that.
I'm never.
with me.
I'm coming home one day, I believe. But until I get there, I don't want to be in here doing what I gotta do.
Yeah.
So I live vicariously through you, homie.
Yeah.
Like, and I was just like,
I root for you.
that checked me, man, and that
Yeah.
helped me to understand. But that's when you only examine
Yeah.
to a certain degree,
Man.
you'll lose opportunities to grab gems and grab help. If I'd have reached out to Lacey and truly just been like, I didn't reach out to a lot. I only reached out to 2 people
Yeah.
when I made that choice.
Yeah.
People who heard it, they reached, but 2 people because I
Yeah.
felt that I didn't want to, I didn't know how to deal with anything
Right.
coming from anyone else.
Right.
If anyone was gonna be disappointed, them was the only 2 I felt
Right.
I could
Right.
I could deal with it.
Right.
But
Nah, man.
I
that's deep
digress, you know
stuff.
what I'm saying?
That's
But,
deep stuff,
yeah.
man. Definitely. Now that we're gonna go into the 2, since we're already in these worldviews. I think we touched on most of that. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to pull out of here?
well, let me read real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna break down the 2 worldviews just so we can get some context about how they actually break it down. So the 2 worldviews, the secular worldview, man is the central figure in shaping events. Man is intrinsically good, masters his own fate. Man determines his own boundaries of his achievements and his own knowledge, and man is unconstrained by moral standards, but he chooses morality at his sole discretion. Like Christian or religious worldview believes that God is sovereign and he's active in everyday life, that God created the heavens and the earth, and that he created us, and that he passes all knowledge and has established absolute moral standards for our protection and for our well-being, and that God is a holy, loving, and personal and relational God. As you hear that, Charlie, as you hear that, you have sons, you know what I'm saying? Like you have life ahead of you. You have other men you're gonna come across, both older than you and younger than you. You're in a field where you work with, you know what I'm saying, youngsters, and you actually supervise and train.
Yeah.
How hearing like that, how does that, like, are you able to identify, that in most of who you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, or do you feel like there may be a couple more worldviews?
That's a good question. No, I think when it all boils down to it, it is just the 2. You know what I mean? Just from my perspective.
Yeah.
Somebody else might think different, but yeah, my day-to-day interactions at my job, you know what I mean? Like I said, I work with youth and train people to work with youth from all different backgrounds, but very violent backgrounds. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, I think it boils down to those 2, you know what I mean? But not everybody that I come in contact believes in God the way I do, you know what I mean? Some may have a different kind of higher power, you know what I mean? Or might be Muslim, or, you know what I mean? Or some atheists,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or into Buddha, you know, Buddhism, you know what I mean? Different faiths, you know what I mean? Or religions. I don't know how to classify, forgive me, I don't want to disrespect nobody's culture. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it for me it just boils down to those 2, and that's the view that I kind of look through when I'm engaging with other people. You know what I mean? And I can identify, like, somewhat I can identify when someone's in their struggle. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm in mine. You know what I mean? But I can see it. I have a clinical view because of my education, you know what I mean? And then I have just life experience, you know what I mean? So I can see when somebody's straddling a certain fence on, you know what I mean, whatever kind of alternate lifestyle that they're living or diving in the moment that might not be healthy. You know what I'm saying? Did that answer
the
you?
question, yeah.
Okay.
And I guess the main reason why I was asking is because it goes on to talk about how each, depending on your worldview, like people who primarily live by a secular worldview will try to apply Christian principles to their problems.
Man.
And then individuals who tend to live a Christian or godly worldview sometimes get frustrated with God and faith, and then they tend to apply secular world principles to their problems. And it's like, it's just.
That's that dilemma.
It is. It is and that's the struggle of being a human being, and not being like, and not being set in who you are as far as your identity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And kind of like just go ahead.
I'm gonna read this little white to piggyback off what you're saying. I'm gonna read this little excerpt from the book, page 50. It says, in other words, many of us are Christians in our spirit, but secular in our practice. We have become a generation of cultural Christians. Man, when I read that, I was like, man, I almost threw the book. I'm like, come on, man, like you poking at me.
Nah, man,
like,
that is like.
And those are the.
And that's the language, like that's like a bad. That's like calling me and.
It's like cussing me out, like man, you a cultural Christian, man.
But it lets you know that there. And it wasn't like this back. When you read the Bible, it really just wasn't like that back then. There wasn't 4, 5, or 6 ways to be a follower.
No, they didn't have all those gravitational pulls, is what I call them, with TV and, you know what I mean, social media and all these excuses, you know what I mean, that we use.
And then it was challenged. Like when people were, you know, there was a point where Paul, he had expressed to the Corinthian church, it was like, man, like some of them were like, you know, I follow Apollos. And some of them were like, I follow Paul. Some of them were, you know, I follow Peter. Yeah. And it's just like, man, we supposed to be following Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, did none of us die for y'all sins?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. It's like,
but they putting all they into a man that will die.
And that's that. I mean? That's more related to secularism.
I think, sorry to cut you, I think this part, that plays into my struggle too, man, because, you know, my dad is a minister, you know, he wasn't all, I remember when my dad became a minister, you know what I mean, and even to this day, he don't, if you see him on the street, you might not think he is one, but he is, you know what I mean, he has his own experiences, you know what I mean, his own story, but I used to struggle with that, looking at my dad's struggles, you know what I mean, I'm not gonna get into my family stuff, but I'm like, dang, like,
right. Oh, I get what you're saying. You
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because I remember his transition,
right.
You know what I mean? It was like, but I'm like, man, I lived with him. Like, you know what I mean? But I saw, man, I remember asking my dad one time, I'm like, why you, that's the only time I really seen him cry, was when he accepted his calling to the ministry, right? I'm like, why, I remember asking him, I'm like, why'd you accept it? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what happened? That's what I said. I'm like, what'd you go through? And I remember he said to me, man, the few words, he just like, cause if I would've kept running, I would've went crazy. He said, and I probably could've hurt y'all. You know what I mean? Just straight, it was like the only time I've seen that man surrender to anything. You know what I mean? So that's one of my, like, proofs that, you know, God is real, you know what I mean, because I know what kind of father I have, you know what I mean, like, but I also know it's a very intense struggle, man, to that cultural Christianity, because you're still human.
And culture does everything in its power to consume you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we have the Mexican church, we have the black church, we have the white church, we have the Samoan church.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We have the Asian church.
All these subcategories.
Mind you,
trying
Jesus
to play to the same. Yeah.
Is who Jesus is.
Yeah. He came for us all.
He came for us all. Did what he did for us all. Rose for us all, and sits at the right hand for us all. But culture will have you separate and distinctively.
Yeah.
Like, identify yourself and culture first.
Yeah,
Like if you're not careful.
that's true.
And
The black church. They'll say that, you know what I mean?
and mind
The
you,
white
please,
church, yeah.
I don't want, man, anybody that's, for all y'all that are tuned in and in our community, please don't think, man, I'm a baby in this. I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to like
Me too.
express that I know everything or I got it all together. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife can attest, I don't. My children can attest, I don't. I make mistakes every day, but I just think conversations like this are necessary because I'm not having this conversation with nobody. You know, me and my wife talk about, we talk about growth in Christ a lot. Like we talk about our children growing up in Christianity today a lot. We talk about, but it's like I'm talking with another man that I used to gangbang with that comes from a generation under me, and we're dialoguing about what we just don't. He's raising men. I'm raising a young man. I'm leading young ladies, or they're young girls right now. They may be ladies. I got a wife. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I'm trying to navigate this, and this is bringing this stuff to the forefront.
Yeah.
Like, what is a cultural Christian, and what is the opposite?
Yeah.
What is the? Because I know it mentions cultural Christian, but what is the other?
Cultural Christians. Let me see. I'm reading through the text. Christians in captivity. That's the other one. That's the section that comes out of. But that's what Timothy was speaking on, and this dilemma was speaking on is the Christians in captivity. You know what I mean? You got believers and non-believers. For those who are believers, you know what I mean? You can hold yourself captive. You know what I mean? To these fallacies or these labels. You know what I mean? That people put on. You know what? On churches, like we were just mentioning, like black churches, Mexican churches, Samoan churches, and we all praying to the same God. You know what I mean? Anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, this one right here says this captures one aspect of leading an unexamined life. We can know much, but if we do not use our knowledge to elevate ourselves, our mind, our soul, our spirit to the highest level of moral good we can attain, then we are poor stewards of that knowledge, and we become Christians in captivity, held captive by the secular worldview, captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy. If we are going to live by the Christian worldview, we must recognize first that ours is a minority view, and second, that we are responsible for our own lives. Christ aches for us to turn to him and follow his plan. We are the ones that must decide to do it.
Yeah, I want to ask you something, man. And be patient with us, please, and we appreciate it, man, because this is all just genuine and raw. Christians in captivity, right? We talked on the cultural aspects and things like that. I'm touching on this aspect of the visible you versus the real you. I'm going to define these for the viewers. The visible you is known as, it is never the real you. We have learned.
So real quick, I don't mean to cut them off, but so the subsection of this is the two U's.
The two U's. Yep.
So no, because all of us have, I believe this.
Identity, we own it, man.
All of us, there's two sides to every story. Like that is said, I think sometimes just loosely, but in all respects, each one of us has two sides. Now, mind you, there are some of us that truly walk and live out the same person we are in front of everybody in an integral way when we're by ourselves. And I strive to be able to do that more so, you know what I'm saying, than I do today. You know, not to say that I'm a hypocrite, not to say that, you know, but I do struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we all wear masks.
The person that I'll digress right now because I'll get in the loop. But go ahead.
So, and it's all gonna connect. The visible you is the known you. It is never the real you. We have learned to speak and act in a way that allows us to cope with our world and peacefully coexist. We work hard to project a certain image of ourselves to others. Speaking on whatever mask or not. I don't even want to call it mask. Sometimes it could be a mask, definitely on the negative end, or just different roles that you play. You know what I mean? Like I'm a son, I'm a father. You know what I mean?
That's what I was going to get into.
I'm a co-worker. I'm an instructor of a certain principles or application to work with at-risk youth, right? And then you have the real you. Is the you that is known by God. We are who we are in our minds first, before we speak or act. Our speech and actions are the result of our thinking. Scripture tells us, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? And it said the heart is deceitful. That's crazy. And that comes from Jeremiah 17:9. To protect our self-image, we kid, we trick, and fool ourselves into believing the visible you is somehow real. To see ourselves as we really are, we must acknowledge our inability to do so without God's help.
And it's impossible.
Man, that's deep, man. That's deep. Because that's true. Most people, I liken it to like, and I'm new to social media, right? Because with the entrepreneurship and trying to like expand that in different ways.
Yeah.
And just myself, like, you know what I mean, just pictures in general. Like, generally, man, people highlight, myself too, you highlight the good stuff. You know what I mean? No one really is gonna post or display. Some people do, like you said, some people do, or don't mind bearing their whole naked truth. You know what I mean? Out there for all to see. But most, you know what I mean? You're what you really go through and what you really heard about might not be visible to others. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean, to your maker, you know what I mean, he's gonna know that, you know what I mean, that's the real you. The real you, I like to define it as the insecure you. You know what I mean? The youth that I work with, I try and tell them, like, my opinion, like, the true testament of strength is not knowing what you're good at. You know what I mean? It's knowing where you're weak. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big dilemma, you know what I mean, that we face, you know what I mean, whether it's Christians or just manhood or whatever the case, you know what I mean, is that tapping into the real you, the way God views you, you know what I mean, and I'm not saying like I know every scripture, no, but I do know scriptures that I have on my heart, and I know, and it said God made us in his image, you know what I mean, so we imperfect in our practice, but we perfect in the way he made us. You know what I mean? If we can accept it and tap into that, you know what I mean? To that rawness. And I know you said that's one of your big struggles, but I see you being a leader in that, you know, amongst others in our community that are stepping out and just being who God wanted you to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or who he's molding you to become.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because no one reaches it, you know what I mean? Or we ain't perfect. No one ever will be. You know what I'm saying? But you can continue to press and self-examine, you know what I mean, to try to be the best version of yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do too. You know what I mean?
I don't know how many times I've been in church since I've been home from prison this time. How many times I've actually been in church and just struggling. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just like repentful, kind of feeling ashamed because I feel like I don't really go hard for God. Like, I may testify to what he's done in my life, and I may express to individuals like you, but sometimes I feel like, man, am I supposed to be out there preaching? Like, am I supposed to be an evangelist?
I asked you that before.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you know
what
what
you
I'm saying?
supposed to do, man? Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to force nothing, that's the thing.
Right.
But God always has a way of meeting me in one of those moments where I'm like, I step out of my way, or I get out of my way. Yeah, I step out of my way and I'm just like, Lord, just, you know, forgive me, man, like, and help me to just let you do, you know, what you want to do with my life. And then someone will come and put their hand on me and be like, hey, God said he's proud of you. You know what I'm saying? God said he's proud of you, you know, and just keep your heart open and keep, you know, and I'm just like, and then they'll just go in pretty much confirming everything I just prayed to him.
Yeah.
And it's like he'll answer just that fast, like,
yeah.
And it's those things it's those interactions that lead me right back out. And like you said, how you know God is very much real and true as far as what you were able to identify through your father and his relationship with him and what he, like the man that your father is. It has helped me all the more to like want to line up outside of the secular, like outside of like the secular worldview, and embrace all the more the relational, God-centered, worldview.
Yeah.
But it's hard because, as you expressed, there is literally a battle between who I am outwardly and who I am inwardly.
And when you said that, I read it. It started page 53. It says the mind is where that battle
takes place. Yep.
Just speaking of what you was on.
Yep. It says it's the battle between the majority view and the minority view, Christian view. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. That's Ephesians 6:12.
Man, that's a deep verse.
Yeah.
It's not against flesh and blood. It's all mental.
And it's all spiritual.
Spiritual, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
It's all spiritual.
Yeah.
Because we are spiritual beings.
And it says because we don't take this invisible war seriously, like you said, invisible, spiritual, emotional, those are invisible. Those are battles that are not going to be seen. It says because many of us don't take that seriously, we lose the battle for our minds.
Almost
our minds.
And that's what it means. You know how earlier it was saying that a lot of Christians, we have secular practices.
Yeah.
And a lot of secular individuals try to practice by applying spiritual practices.
That's true.
And the reality is, if most of us, I speak for myself, if I can just more so than I do, I'm learning more and more. If I can just learn how to fight more in the spirit and continue to push in faith, I wouldn't have as many psychological losses on the battlefield, in my near future.
And that takes a surrender, man. I know for me it is, man, and that's hard, man. I know my mom, she is deep south, so it seems easy for her, you know what I mean, to surrender, you know what I mean, and I think that's hard for a lot of men to surrender that control to you know what I mean, to like, or the illusion of control, because we ain't in control anyway, you know what I mean, to really walk in that life, but it can be done, and it said the proof of it is in the next couple little sentences. It says, but we can win this battle back, you know what I mean, by committing ourselves to self-examination through studying the scriptures. You can know the real you, the you that is known by our God. Let's look at a promising tool to help us in the quest to understand ourselves. And this is going to transition to another subcategory, which is look at the fish. In this category, this is a long, like basically you tapped into this where the writer's kind of painting a picture of I think it's a scientist, a science lab or something like that, and basically it's a professor and a student, and the student is told by the professor to examine this fish, and basically the professor gets up and I guess he leaves for a long period of time, and the student is sitting there going through all kinds of questions, but he takes a look at it from one view of the fish, okay, the fish looks like this or has these characteristics. And then when he realized the professor just delayed in returning, he takes another view. And long story short, what I got out of this section was just to be intense and aggressive in taking multiple views, you know what I mean? Snapshots of yourself, not just sitting
not
from
just
one
looking
angle.
once.
Yeah, exactly.
And just
you know
looking
what I mean?
at from one angle, right?
Yeah, which is why I'm glad we have these check-ins on Wednesdays, you know what I mean? So we're gonna attack this approach from not just a Sunday view, you know what I mean? We're gonna attack it from a midpoint too. Whether we've read or not.
I'm not just gonna assume, because that's the thing. See, this is not just, and for our community, we're not just reading a book. Like, we're reading a book, but the whole intention and purpose of this is to grow. And with everything in mind from what we've talked about, I believe in the Lord, he believes in the Lord.